ActionSA has criticised the decision by Eskom and the Electricity Minister to appeal a court judgment which declared load shedding unconstitutional. Now, last month, the North Gauteng High Court ruled that load shedding is a result of Eskom and government failures, amongst other aspects. It comes as Eskom announced the return of load shedding this week, following a reprieve during the festive season. For more on this, we're joined now by ActionSA leader Herman Mashaba. Very good morning to you, Mr. Mashaba. Thank you for your time. You have expressed your outrage over this decision by Eskom. Talk to us about some of your concerns.
Well, yes, good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity and taking the matter which the Constitutional Court has declared unconstitutional to deprive electricity to the essential services like police stations, schools and hospitals. And I think it's actually quite outrageous, quite really strange that the presidency at the time welcomed the decision. But now all of a sudden in the middle of a holiday they decide to appeal the decision, instead of actually taking the money that is going to go to high-powered legal representation to actually start doing something to address this particular matter. They decide to take public money, which the country does not have. It goes to the lawyers to appeal something that is constitutional. We find this really very strange in terms of how the South African government actually runs this country. Because how do you run a country when you have the courts declaring something that is obvious as unconstitutional? Because here you've got the lives of people involved. In police stations, where you go to police stations in the middle of the night, your police cannot really assist you because of load shedding. In hospitals, you can imagine the consequences of load shedding in hospitals, in schools. Without the education of our children, how are we going to ever build a sustainable nation? But now, here is a government which was initially forced to actually recognize the unconstitutionality of their action. Something that has been happening for 18 years, caused by them. And it's not really like you've had a natural disaster. This Eskom was destroyed by this government through acts of corruption, through acts of mismanagement. Why really appeal instead of actually taking that money that's going to go to the lawyers, start actually addressing this matter, go to the courts and say to the courts, this is the amount of millions of one hospital, one school, one police station at a time. As you can imagine, this appeal is not going to come for free. So this is something that honestly I think for us as ActionSA we find completely outrageous, totally unacceptable, insensitive as far as this government is concerned.
In Eskom's papers, the power utility seemingly expects to win because they're saying that the appeal has a reasonable prospect of success for several reasons, speaking about how the order is vague and because it doesn't identify the relevant respondent organs of the state or prescribed what constitutes as reasonable steps. What is your understanding of the legal basis of the appeal?
I cannot really, in the life of me, not really being a lawyer, just really being an ordinary citizen, please go and speak to someone who works at Baragwanath Hospital or at any police station, or ask school principals and teachers and the students on the negative impact of load shedding on the services they're supposed to be providing. How can that really be vague? I'm saying is the money that the government is going to be using to really empower and reach lawyers. Why don't they take this money, approaches the court to say we will obviously attend to one police station? The money now, instead of actually taking this money, fix this problem which they believe it is vague. How clear must it be? When you have load shedding in a police station, you go to a police station, they cannot assist you because it is darkness. When hospitals cannot operate when there's no electricity, how can you ever want clarity on this matter? I think it's an insult on the intelligence of South Africans.
The latest forecast by Eskom system operator indicates an equally difficult 2024 insofar as load shedding and power is concerned. What do you think the impact of such a move will be as we go into a very important year? Elections are literally months away, Mr. Mashaba.
Well, I think it really saddens me, and deeply so, because as you can imagine, with the highest sustainable unemployment rate in the world, when the world is looking for South Africa with all the negative indexes, so you can imagine how the world is going to really look at South Africa in terms of investment. And without international investment, even as business people in South Africa, how do you invest in electricity? Tell me how our schools going to operate, where they can produce engineers that can fix Eskom tomorrow. How are they going to study when you have a government that instead of focusing on ensuring that the schools are equipped? Look at the high crime rate in this country. It is sad to read in the news. In fact, the last night before I went to bed, watching one of the international news agencies, where South Africa, it's known worldwide that the international community discussing the rate of crime in South Africa being one of the worst in the world. So you in terms of visitors visiting South Africa, tell me, as a tourist from anywhere in the world, would you go to a country where you've got a chance of being murdered, a country where 77 people are being murdered every year? For every 11 minutes, there's a woman being raped. Will you go to a country like that? You don't have to really be a rocket scientist to figure out that we are going to have a difficult really period, because our government is totally determined. I think, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, this government is determined to ensure that they destroy this country. Why? I don't know. Because their actions, honestly, are clearly of the country instead of building it. Because just as I must keep repeating, when you have the little money that you've got, why don't you go and make sure that some hospitals, we know and accept that they might not really have the money to provide backup electricity services in all the hospitals, in all schools and police stations. Instead of taking that money, go and provide that service. They take that money, go and actually empower lawyers on cases that's going to drag, is going to cost millions. So this clearly demonstrates that these people are not really serious about addressing the state of electricity in our country. They've got another agenda. And unfortunately, their failure to address electricity in South Africa ultimately is going to destroy this economy. And when this economy is destroyed, South Africa will soon be declared a failed state. And a failed state, what happens? Are we going to be able to recover? There are countries which got independence before I was born. I'm 64 years of age now. Countries that got independence in 1964, today they are going from one crisis to other. Because once you reach a state of to recover from that, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It says possible almost. And South Africa right now, and it is up to South African voters. They've got to really decide. It's not really this current government any longer. I think if South Africans 30 years later, we fail to realize that this government is there to really destroy us, then South Africans, we must accept the consequences of living in a failed state, to live in chaos, and leave a dysfunctional country for future generations.
As this matter, very lastly, Mr. Mashaba, will be taking to the courts, I mean, with Eskom's expectations very high when it comes to winning, I mean, they've also said that they were mistakenly included as being responsible for the electricity crisis, saying that it was not responsible for any of the conduct that resulted in the electricity crisis. As one of the original applicants in this matter, how are you going to ensure that you exert pressure to ensure that, the court's decision stands?
Well, what makes us as ActionSA outrageous and really angry for that matter is that our senior advocate, Gillian Benson, as of today, long-term arrangements made, is going on vacation because he worked throughout the festive season, and mainly on government's inaction in a lot of this, most of these cases. Now, so to return so that they can give us advice on how to really approach this. This is what makes us angry. But here it's a government that's supposed to be saving people. Now we've got to really use our limited resources, which we don't have. Like, even government does not have the money to appeal this case. They don't. I'm sure you know our balance sheet as a country. We've got close to 5 trillion rands in debt. It's not like we're talking about a country that has got money to waste. Even us as political parties fighting this matter because it costs the money with the legal representation. Because I can tell you, even if they lose in the next round, they will appeal until it goes to the Constitutional Court. Then you ask yourself the logic. Why should government really be forced by a court to deliver services which they are constitutionally obliged to really do? This is really something really very funny. And this problem in South Africa can only be solved by South African voters to really decide whether this 30 years of our new democratic government has worked for them or not. Yeah, they've got an opportunity within the next few months to really make that decision.
Okay, Mr. Mashaba, thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. We do apologize for the break in transition there as we continue our discussion with Mr. Herman Mashaba, leaving it there for now. Eskom appeal of load shedding, getting that reaction from ActionSA, which is one of the original applicants in this matter, saying that they're not going to take it lying down.